Since its inception, Project 1512 has provided over $200,000 of financial support to over 360 households. And over that same time, Project 1512 has provided non-financial support through prayer and other acts of love to countless others. It was Project 1512's conception of love that drew me in as a volunteer, donor, and board member. Project 1512 aims to love others, inspired by the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 12, which is to say, Project 1512's mission is to love others unconditionally. Anyone who has ever received or given unconditional love knows that while it's always given freely, it never comes without a cost. It's this challenge and the desire to be a little bit better today than yesterday, coupled with the continuing needs of our community, that keeps me engaged with the organization.
So Project 1512 started up about 7 years ago, or actually the idea of Project 1512, before we even knew that it was going to be Project 1512, started about 7 years ago. Both Carly and I just had on our heart that we really wanted to do something, and we didn't quite know what that was. And so from talking to each other and just talking through ideas and some life experiences, we really felt that there was a gap in our community, that there was a certain population in our community that would go through some unexpected hardships and could just really find themselves kind of in a rut. And there are people who are used to being able to do everything on their own, pay all their own bills, go to work, live life normally. But you run up against something that you weren't expecting, and it can really set you back. So that's really kind of where the idea of Project 1512 came from. And we really wanted to show love to people when they were going through a hard time. So thus, Project 1512 was born. Whether people have any kind of faith or nothing, whether they know anything about God or nothing about God, we hope that the little bit of love that we can show them just provides a little bit of light in their life and a little bit of love, so that they know that they haven't been forgotten and that God does love them.
In the application, there's a list of options that you can choose, from like gift cards to groceries to just cutting a check to the services or what your needs were. So I requested, you know what, I can get by with cutting down on groceries, cutting down on transportation. So I asked for a check for my landlord and also a check directly to Mid-American, and that's what they did. I mean, within a few days, everything was taken care of. Carly sent me a message saying, okay, this is the amount we're going to pay, and it was for 2 months of not expecting anything back in return. And so I felt really guilty, but and it's really hard for me because I prefer to give than to take. And so to receive something so big, I didn't know how to respond, but I am completely thankful. I did think about it. I was like, what if I couldn't pay the 2 months rent? What if, because bills were still stacking up. Those things you can never stop. So I would be further behind on my utilities. And when you're too behind, you get those notices to cut off. And I don't want notices to be cut off. I don't want the kids to question, why aren't the lights on? Or having to move. We moved a lot this past, few years. So those were the two things I wanted, just so the kids can feel secure and they wouldn't have to know what was going on. I also recently heard a sermon from Pastor Mark Swanson that says that when you have nothing, God is up to something. And at that time, I was losing so much. And I was going through this medical, problem, and then accumulating medical bills and hospital bills that was beyond what I could handle at the time. And when I didn't have anything, God truly did provide something. And I would not have known if I hadn't just shared my story with somebody and asked for help. So I suggest you do the same. I know it's hard, but swallow your pride, love yourself, and just ask so others can help you. This is the one resource out there that people who are above the poverty, barely above the poverty income line, to qualify for. This is your only hope.
So the referral process for Project 1512, I think, really just starts with the community members. And it's our hope, when we talked about this at the beginning, like, where are we going to get referrals? Who, are there really these people that need these services that we think they do? So really, it's just like people in the community who see their friends, their family, neighbors, coworkers, just anybody who is going through a rough time, who's struggling, who has a crisis, on life transition, and then takes it one step further and maybe seeks out Project 1512's assistance. So hopefully, through word of mouth, they know about our organization. We receive referrals from churches, now starting to get them from other organizations, which is pretty cool. And our favorite, is my favorite, I should say, referrals are from past recipients of services. That's just, I think it's really great that somebody who's received services is now looking out for other people and wanting them to get the same help that they've received from Project 1512. Once they have been referred through either calling our intake number, or we have an email address, or sometimes they just reach out to Monica and I personally. They get an application sent to them. Monica and I get that back with just some basic information of what they're going through, gives us an idea better of how we can help them, and also gives them an idea of what our organization is about. So we get that, kind of go through it, decide what we think we can do, take it to our board, get approval, hopefully, and then have the nice part, the fun part of maybe reaching back out and saying, yes, we can help you with whatever that need may be.
My family has a pretty prevalent history of breast cancer. So in January of last year, I was tested for genetic mutations, and it did come back that I was BRCA positive. So then I was on this preventative, hey, every 3 to 4 months we'll do mammograms. I was like, okay, great, sounds good. February was the first one. It was totally clear. And so by July of 2020, so you're only thinking February to July, I found a lump. Chemo started in October, and I did 6 months, and then went through my surgery in May, which was the bilateral. Yeah, so that came, the financial assistance came at perfect timing when I went into my double mastectomy surgery in May. So, the complicated thing with, any type of illness, mine being breast cancer, is you still have all these outside stressors, but you're told to focus on your healing, your recovery, this is your priority, but your rent doesn't stop, your telephone bill still goes, and it's unfortunate that that's just how it is. So I, of course, was pretty stressed out going into that surgery, knowing that would put me off even more to go back to work. And really, that support, legit helped me focus on the healing, on the recovery, where I really got to relax and be like, okay, I am able to now give myself number one priority. I feel like it's so far beyond me, and realistically it's not at all. It was just 3-4 months ago, and it's still, I'm still in the healing timeline of my body, and preparing for even another surgery. So it really was life-saving. For, like I said, 4 months, I just was able to not worry.
Sometimes people come to us and they have need. And sometimes it's hard for them to even pinpoint what their need is. And then just through talking with them and trying to kind of figure out, okay, what is the need? Is it money for rent or mortgage, or is it okay, your car is not working, so you need to get that fixed so that you can get to your job, so that you have the money to pay the rent and the mortgage. So those are some different things that we've helped with over the years. Everything from rent, mortgage, utilities, car repairs, even helping purchase money towards a new car so that they can get back to work as well. It's also been helping with medical bills. And sometimes it's some random things, as either a house repair or maybe a new refrigerator or freezer or something just that they need in their house, just for those basic necessities too. Some of the other unique things that we try to do throughout the years, we have our love and action team that we like to call ourselves, and that we again are trying to just sprinkle a little bit of love around the community. And sometimes it's not just financially that someone needs a little bit of love. Sometimes it's just a real pick-me-up, kind of a touch, if you will, of, hey, we're thinking about you. Especially through this pandemic and people having to be quarantined, we knew how isolating and lonely that felt. So we put together some quarantine survival kits, and we asked people to nominate anybody, an individual or a family member who maybe just needed a little something to kind of get them through that lonely isolation time of quarantining. And so we put together, it was, a puzzle, it was cough drops and vitamin C tablets and tissues and word searches and crossword books, and just something that was kind of fun, that we could just drop at the door, ring the doorbell. It was a good kind of ding dong ditch. So that was one thing that we did.
We were so reluctant. We're the type of people that don't look for any assistance. We kind of, like I said, we like to strap our boots up and just take care of the situation. But, yeah, sure. But, Project 1512, you guys were persistent. You came, this is for people like you in this situation, and I think it was hard for us to accept that we needed help.
Found out I was pregnant, it was, I had, like your normal swelling. It was my first pregnancy. I wasn't really sure what to expect, but just kind of had your normal swelling. And then by about 20 weeks, gaining more weight than I should have, but it was mostly water weight. Mother's Day weekend, I spent the whole weekend in the ER, just with some elevated numbers that they wanted to watch me for, and then they sent me home just with hypertension, like, hey, we're just going to watch out for this. I started going to weekly appointments to the OB, and overnight it changed from hypertension to you're in an ambulance going to Iowa City. At that point I was 29 weeks and 1 day, and so I was like, they said you can't come home until you deliver. So then I got put in the antepartum unit, which is basically like anti-give birth. Mm-hmm. They came to me on the 29th of May, and they were like, your numbers aren't going down, we have to get her out. Had a lot of issues. I was actually hemorrhaging. Wasn't the easiest, but she got out fine. They warned us that she might not cry, and she was crying, so that was awesome. And then we couldn't hold her for 7 days, so we got
she
had to be flatline.
Correct.
For the first 7 days of her life. So like when we would change her diaper was the only time that we could really touch her. And still to this day, he calls them diaper daddy dates. We got this gift card from Project 1512, and hospital food is not cheap, and so
especially when you're there for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Right.
How long did we spend there total?
72 days.
72 days.
We've had we could definitely feel the prayers. There were some really tough days in there. She had a hole in her heart that needed to close, and each week it would get smaller and smaller, and the week we were discharged it closed. Her initials it's Marigold Grace, and we call her Goldie Grace, and so we say GG stands for God's gift. Monica reached out, asked, how they could help, and we had to stay in a hotel. I got discharged on June 2nd, and she didn't get discharged till July 29th, so we were in a hotel for about 60 days. We switched 4 different hotels depending on the price. just because, we started a nicer one. So we were coming home, we had a lot of hospital bills piling up. We were paying a mortgage plus hotel at the same time, hadn't even been in our new house, and then we had to double our babysitting expense. So that's when I reached out to Project 1512 and just said, this is the thing that's on my mind and this is what could help us the most right now. So they paid an entire month of our mortgage. What meant the most to me is when I shared with Tevin is when we did accept the help. I spoke with Monica mostly, and she was very appreciative of us accepting the help, and so I could tell that they've probably ran into this in the past, because the type of people that they are helping are people that typically don't get government assistance, but they're that middleman just pays, has their job, gets paid, and they feel like there's a lot of people that are less off than me and we don't need that. And the thing is that is a very special niche, and that's what they go after. So if you do feel uncomfortable, you're probably the perfect candidate.
I would definitely say 1512. The words I would use were peace of mind. They bring you peace of mind. You're struggling with an unfortunate circumstance. They swoop right in. You guys swooped right in and really brightened the day for us when it was really at its darkest. So I think that's the best way I can describe it.
Well, because not only the monetary value that was given, but what that allowed us to do for our finances, and just get in a spot where for the first time we felt like we were finally ahead.
Yeah, we were ahead instead of
chasing our tail.
Exactly, we're way behind. So it was a blessing.
So I think at the end of the day, what we really hope for with Project 1512, or what we want people that we work with as far as the referrals, or just, I guess, anyone who knows about Project 1512, I guess first and foremost, to know love and to know Christ's love, but also just to have a little bit of hope in the midst of their dark time, in the midst of this unexpected circumstance that they have found themselves in, and just to know that, hey, if these two ladies who are complete strangers to me, this organization I didn't know anything about, shows up and says, hey, how can we help you? That there is hope in the world around us. Life is crazy, the world is crazy, but there is still a God who loves all of us, and we just want to be able to share that and know that people are seen, they're understood, they're not judged, and that there is hope.